Life can come quickly. The good, the bad, the ugly. And sometimes it gets to be really ugly. And that's the loss of a spouse, what we like to call or refer to as suddenly single. When you take care of more than 1,000 families, which the Financial Enhancement Group does, we deal with this every year. The loss of life that nobody really planned for. Doctors didn't tell you. It could be an accident, a sudden heart attack. But one way or the other, one of our families becomes suddenly single. One of the things we do at the Financial Enhancement Group is help build checklists so that people understand what to go through so that we can remove some of the emotional complexity. But this is a challenging period of time. And there are things you have to deal with, not just from the investment world and the tax world, and that doesn't even touch the emotional aspects of what's going on. But there's things that we have to consider. Let's be prepared for it before it occurs. Join us on Consider This program, and we'll discuss being suddenly single. Good morning and welcome to Consider This program. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Aaron Rheaume.
So happy to have you along. Aaron is our Director of Financial Planning, one of my partners. So happy to have him here. We are discussing when things change. And the title of this conversation is, it's very hard to be excited and enthusiastic about. But what I will tell you is we build our careers and our lives on helping people be prepared for the unexpected. Now, there's some things you just can't prepare for emotionally, but we certainly try to help people prepare for them emotionally. I am a huge fan of checklists. If you're a book reader and you've not read the Checklist Manifesto, I would strongly encourage you to read it. It's now probably in my top 10, used to be in my top 5. There's some really good books that have come out in the last couple of years. I think, COVID did a lot for musicians that were putting out albums like crazy because they weren't touring. The same thing is true for some of the authors that are writing books. But suddenly single is that emotional strain you go through with the loss of a spouse or a partner. How do you deal with it emotionally? And then more importantly, how do you deal with it? I shouldn't say more importantly, but equally important is how do you deal with it financially? One, we've got a checklist or two put together to help us address that for you and with you. But secondly, there's things that you need to understand that Aaron and I are going to walk you through. One of them that's significantly important is the IRS. So tell me the challenge with the tax situation, Aaron, if you lose a spouse singly. Suddenly, rather.
Yeah, you lose the ability to have married filing jointly on your tax return, and now you have to use your return as single filing, and your brackets get significantly compressed.
And that's the word that we use. Tell me, and pretend like I don't know anything about taxes at all.
Sure.
What did you just say?
You could potentially owe more taxes just because a spouse passed away.
No way.
Yes.
Really?
Really. Wow.
In one case, it was 53% more the next year. Nobody, there are unintended consequences that happen in a lot of legislation, rule changes. I don't think the Congress sits around unless you have a lot of money. I don't think they sit around and try to evilly figure out how to hurt you.
No.
Unless you have a lot of money, and then you're the, public enemy number one. You, Al Capone. One of those things. Might be a little bit cynical about that. But the reality is that there are unintended consequences, and one of those is with the loss of a spouse. If you happen to have a child at home that's a minor, you actually get a bonus year. You get to file married filing jointly for 1 extra year.
Yeah.
Right. But if you have no kids, let's kill me. Joe gets whacked again. The bus hits me. Right. I die on January 1. When does Barb have to start filing as a single person?
So you die January 1 of 2021. She has to file.
Gets to file in 2022. That for the tax return for 2021 in 2022, but in 2022 she's filing as a single individual. Yes. They come up with a nice term for it. By the way, we have no kids at home, right? And the dog doesn't count. Before you got into the industry, you used to not have Social Security numbers for kids. Do you know we lost millions of Americans that year?
Really?
They just vanished.
Wow.
Right? So I don't know how many dogs had Social Security, or I don't know how many dogs were listed on tax returns, but it's amazing the things we lost millions. This was not thousands.
Yeah.
This was not hundreds. We lost millions of residents. Anyhow, just saying. So tax returns are an interesting thing. But if I died on January 1st, Barb has the whole year of 2021 to make financial decisions,
Sure.
knowing that she's married filing jointly one more time. If I died on December 31st of 2021,
Same rule applies.
so you're telling me she has hours,
She has hours.
and it's probably on the weekend,
probably.
and the banks are closed.
We may be open.
We may be, but I mean,
Yes.
but literally, you are limited. The IRS, ladies and gentlemen, has no sense of humor.
Yes.
So sometimes I get knocked on for not having any sympathy, and that is entirely inaccurate. I am very empathetic when somebody loses a spouse, but I understand that time is of the essence when it comes to this, because a lot of times you lose people around the holidays, i.e. Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve. In fact, the majority of the stuff that I do after October 15th is pure tax planning for the families that we already take care of.
Yes.
I see maybe one or two new families after that every year, because it's aimed at the families that we are responsible for already taking care of, and it's a critical thing. So, other than paying attention, going from the tax aspect, I guess, what is the first thing that you would tell Barb if something happened to me that we need to do? And forget all the emotional stuff. I mean, there's nothing.
Okay.
There's
So you want me to
nothing
take
you
the-
could do to make her feel better.
Yeah. And it's difficult because
32 years of marriage. I'm joking. She would probably be. I get time off.
the first thing you would do after you take the emotional side of it out is call your financial planner. Call us at Financial Enhancement Group. That way we can help quarterback you through the situation. Unfortunately, we've been doing this for a long time, and as Joe mentioned, this is not our first rodeo when it comes to suddenly losing a spouse. It's a very difficult situation to go through, but there has to be proper planning put in place. So I would make that first phone call to the financial planner that's helping you out.
The greatest letter that you ever wrote to your spouse, you may believe was the love letter that got them to say yes to the first date or the first Valentine's Day or to accept a proposal.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest love letter you can ever write to your family is a letter that they read after you're gone. And it alleviates so much of the pressure and stress of questions that they may have, of things that they want to know. People that are in their 50s don't typically talk about where they want to be buried, how they want to be buried. They don't talk about those kind of things necessarily. They don't, but understanding the finances. I will tell you, my name is in an awful lot of boxes at home that, the first thing is call Joe. And that's a responsibility I do not take lightly. It's come from decades of working with families we had a family that I lost that we've been taking care of for 21 years last year, 94 years old, and she passed away. And that was the first call. It was call Joe, the first thing in there, call Joe. And they did. And, it's never the fun call, but that's what it is. So from a tax standpoint, married filing jointly, right? Remember, the tax rate doesn't change just because somebody died. But what happens is the amount of money that you have at each of the brackets. So, right, we've always talked about taxes as a series of stair steps.
Yes.
The stair steps don't change, but the amount of money that you can make and be in one of those lower stairs as you work your way up the staircase is reduced when you're not married filing jointly. That's what he meant when he said margin compressed. So this may be if I died in January 1st, right, my income would be dramatically reduced, right? And our tax rate, married filing jointly, even though I'm not here, would be lower, right? So that's called income variability.
Yes.
Right? And one of those things that Aaron would help Barb do is perhaps take money out of a 401k this year at a lower tax bracket than what she would be at next year when she was filing as an individual, right? If I died January 1st, I might not have made enough income to be able to contribute to retirement plans. But, let's say it was the end of January and I had enough to qualify. You would make sure that, anything that could be contributed could be. You're technically not supposed to do that after somebody's already passed away. Just saying. We would tell you no. I'm just telling you I've watched people do those things. But she may make a charitable deduction or a charitable contribution in her name. Right? I can't make a charitable contribution when I'm dead. I can leave money behind, but that doesn't affect my tax return. That just affects my estate. Right? So those are some things. What else do you have? What else would you do for somebody who was suddenly single?
One thing that I want to maybe kill a misconception is oftentimes I've heard people in the past told to wait maybe a month or 2 months or 3 or 6 before they seek guidance. That is absolutely not the thing that you should do, especially because of what we're mentioning with the timelines of when someone passes and how you can file a tax return for 1 more year. So I would make sure, again, to call your financial professional right away. The other things that we can do is hopefully, if you're working with someone, build checklists around those decisions that need to happen. So where are key passwords located for bank account logins, and all of those things really need to be thought about and thought out on where to store that stuff.
Ahead of time.
Yes.
Right? And makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to give you, if I can get to both of them, I'm going to give you 2 tax ones. This one is often missed. You guys all know Darren Hardesty. He's an associate advisor,
Yes.
part of the Financial Enhancement Group. He's in every meeting that I have with families. Wonderful young man. And we had a case. He's responsible for looking at this. We transferred money in from another brokerage firm. We knew that the husband had died 2 years ago. And the spouse transferred the money into the Financial Enhancement Group at TD Ameritrade, where we custody the money. We looked at the basis on the stock. So this is non-IRA money. And there was no way that the cost basis was accurate, knowing that when the husband died, she should have received a 50% step up in basis on the stock. Right? So at the other firm, if they would have sold the stock, she would have paid thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes that she didn't need to pay because the step up in basis was not put there. We were able to go into her portfolio, get the step up in basis on half the shares, and able to sell the shares that had the increased basis so that we could give her some money to be able to use for things she needed in the best possible tax scenario. Yes, we get paid at the Financial Enhancement Group to manage money. Not to do that, not to do what I just said, not to help you with your tax planning, not to collaborate with your CPA, not to help you with your estate plan. But those are things that we do because, darn it, we think they're right. And that's what you do for family. And that's how we behave. If you want to call us, 800-928-4001, or go to yourlifeafterwork.com to get signed up for a Next Steps meeting. And we would be honored to spend 90 minutes with you. It's complimentary. We'll give you things to consider today, things you're going to want to consider in your future. And if we choose to partner together, what FEG will do for you, and we'll put it into writing. Again, it's 800-928-4001, yourlifeafterwork.com. While you're there, get signed up for your Next Steps meeting. And don't forget the Market Carver and newsletter that'll come out every week.